Steel Force is the Morgan Hypercoaster located at Dorney Park in Allentown, Pennsylvania. The ride is 200 feet tall, but has a 205-foot drop, goes 70 miles an hour, and from start to finish, lasts a minute and 7 seconds. Despite the ride's size and scale, the ride is relatively graceful, which can lead to some split opinions. Some people I've heard think Steel Force has the same type of airtime as Magnum XL 200, and while I don't think it does, I also don't agree with the people that would go as far to call it a glorified mine train. I fall somewhere in the middle, so today I'm going to be reviewing Steel Force and telling you where I stand on the ride. So Steel Force has a pretty basic layout for a hypercoaster. It's nearly identical to other Morgan hypercoasters, such as Mamba or Wild Thing, but I'd say all the elements on Steel Force execute pretty well. So it starts with a slight left turn, then you go up the lift hill. The drop is nice in the front, but it's really good in the back, but you do get floater airtime in every single route. So Steel Force has phenomenal profiling, and it's probably the smoothest coaster at Dorney Park. In addition, this coaster has very minimalistic restraints, so this drop is extremely smooth and enjoyable in the back row. The first airtime hill absolutely delivers nice floater airtime in every row, but the same cannot be said about the second hill. It kind of levels off very gradually, which is kind of followed with straight track before the downward helix. I see why this section was designed this way, with the need for the track to be so high off the ground before the helix, but I think if this coaster was designed today, it would look a little different. Not that like trash on this part of the ride. I still think that the helix is very intense and forceful, but I do want to mention that the footage you're seeing right now is of Steel Force testing, and I got this during Dorney Park's Winter Chill Out event. We got to walk underneath Hydra the Revenge, and I was able to get these really cool shots of Steel Force testing. So I'll be making a video of my experience there and kind of what happened, as well as a review for Dorney Park soon. So stay tuned for that, because honestly, Dorney Park is one of my favorite Cedar Fair parks. But anyways, back to the ride. After the helix, you twist yourself to the left and kind of realign yourself with the lift hill, and then you rise into the mid-course brake run. This coaster is trimmed on the mid-course to death. Not as much as Goliath at Magic Mountain, but it still slows you down a significantly bit. I think there's a reason for this. I do think it does affect the remaining stretch of airtime hills, and that these could be a little bit better, but it is what it is. These hills really don't provide much force unless you're sitting in the front or back. They're really still fun regardless, though. The reason I think the mid-course hits as hard as it does is, as hard as it hits, the train still goes into the final brakes with a whole lot of speed. And I'm assuming the park has the mid-course on to kind of reduce the wear and tear in the brakes. And if that means the ride's open more, then that's okay with me. In the late 90s, while B&M was developing a refined hypercoaster, it's clear that Morgan was okay with copying the style of Era with Magnum XL 200 or Desperado, two rides that remind me a lot more of Steel Force than any B&M. The problem is that the newer style of hypercoaster, like Canobie, makes Morgan hypercoasters seem a lot more obsolete, even though they still give really fun rides. I think that this style of hypercoaster works. I haven't done Mamba or Wild Thing yet, but I don't think my opinion on those would be much different than on Steel Force. I have this coaster currently ranked as the second best ride in the park, but with Iron Menace opening soon, we will definitely see about that. That's all I have to say for this review though, so I'll see you guys in the next one.